Hello, everyone. I have a great subscriber that always does his best to promote me, he and his wife, and always puts my name on all his Twitter posts. They have a lovely channel, and they live in Spain, and his wife is just enchanting. They go from city to city and festival to festival, and she's just lovely to watch and listen to. Her name is La Dama, and the name of the channel is Texas G147 meets La Dama Spanish Girl. And it's a fun watch. And if you know Spanish, she speaks entirely in Spanish. And even if you don't understand Spanish, she's just lovely to listen to. And you just follow them around on their vacations and around where they live. And you see these, you get a little look into some lovely places that you might never see. So I thank them very much for their work and their effort to promote me because they believe in my work. They really do. So thank you very much. And have a try. Have a look at them. I guarantee you'll enjoy it. And now on with the show. I know, and the impeachment goes on. Just like the Three Dog Night saying, and the show must go on. And then Freddie Mercury wrote, and the show must go on. And I think it was first coined in vaudeville, possibly at the turn of the century. The impeachment must go on. But do we not forget that Pelosi didn't do one thing? She didn't make one move against President Bush with his ridiculous war in Iraq that had nothing to do with 9/11, though he was a horrible person. I've told you this story before. I was doing some flower work, and a young man, the brother of the girl I was doing flower work for her wedding, he came down and he started talking about the war. He was the first troops on the ground. And they thought, all of them thought, we were going in because of the oil, which we never ended up taking, by the way. But when they went in, they saw that mothers and children were drinking out of cesspools and gathering water from cesspools, while Saddam Hussein had a water palace and took all the water of his many palaces, I think there were 5, took all the water for himself just to have the beauty of the water flowing in fountains and waterfalls and rivers throughout the palace. Then they opened up a cellar hole, which is a piece of evidence that you cannot create at all. And I was talking to someone who, someone who was a first eyewitness to this. And he said they opened up the cellar hole and there was 25 years worth of bodies of mothers and children that had been thrown down there after being raped by Saddam Hussein's men. They slit their throats and they threw them down the cellar hole. Now Saddam Hussein had a secular government. Even though he was a Sunni Muslim, he pretty much ran the show. And it wasn't like in Iran, run by the mullahs. So he said, it was good that we went in because we stopped that. So for a time, Iraq, even though Bush caused the deaths of millions of people, who knows how many, who knows, because we can't, amongst the civilians, of Iraq. We don't know the body count, and we never will. We know our soldiers that were killed, and we can guesstimate how many millions were killed in Iraq. When he left 33,000 troops on the ground, and then Obama went in and took them out, and then ISIS came in. And that was the end of Iraq. So even though maybe something good could have happened from Saddam Hussein's death, he was charged and tried by his own people and hung by his own people because he was such a horrible person. Some good could have come out of that, but Obama came in and said he was voted in to end wars, but he really gave ammunition to another war, didn't he? But millions died, and it was WikiLeaks had leaked this information that torture was going on. The United States was involved in torture, and that's against the Geneva Convention. Nancy Pelosi got a hold of these papers. She read them. They were given to her. She knows this, and she knows that this is against the law. So Bush should have been impeached for that. Bush should have been impeached for that. He should have been impeached for that whole war. Even though, like I said, there was some good, but it had nothing to do with 9/11. We still didn't have a reason. America didn't have a reason to go in to Iraq to do that. And we could have used our military power somewhere else, where it was more warranted for the U.S., because we had no reason. Nancy Pelosi was guilty. If she let that out, see, she was just as guilty, and she should have been impeached just as much as Bush should have been impeached. But she kept that. She put that aside. And see, if Bush was at fault, she would be at fault too. So the hypocrisy of this charade impeachment. Our eyes open up to the truth the more and more we know about history. Now, Obama also did several things, and several things I can think of off the top of my head. I've got a pen in the phone, and if you don't vote the way I want you to vote, I said this before Congress and the Senate, I've got a pen and a phone, and I'm just going to do it anyway. So basically, he just announced that he was a dictator. That's very bad. And the Fast and Furious arms that we funneled to the drug cartels. We actually gave military-style rifles to the drug cartels of Mexico, which ended up killing a federal agent, U.S. agent, but thousands of Mexicans. Now I ask you, did he care about Mexicans? You liberals, you care so much about Mexicans. I say he didn't care about Mexicans, because by doing that, he caused the death of thousands of Mexicans. Never mind, he built the cages, and those pictures of the cages that are floating around come from 2014 when he was in office. Those are pictures of Obama's cages. All right? And of course, there's sex trafficking and sex slavery, and thousands, possibly millions, of Mexican children and women and young boys are being sold into sex slavery, but you don't care about that. Okay, so that was really dumb. And he also announced that, Eric Holder, his wingman, his attorney general, was held in contempt of Congress. He didn't show up when Congress called him in to talk about Fast and Furious. And then Obama announces that the courts, because the president by law, if you go by the legal process, you appeal to the court, and then the court decides whether handing evidence over to the Congress is constitutional or not. Does the president have a right to do this? If he does, then that evidence, he doesn't have to hand it over. If you're completely obstructing the system, you don't go to the courts, you just say, I've got a pen and a phone, and if you I'm just going to do it anyway. You see, that's bad. He said that the courts has no right to decide whether he gives over evidence or not. He completely obstructed justice. That was so impeachable. I can't even tell you, because it makes my head spin. Never mind, here's another one. I'm going to read you some. I'm going to read you some right here. But overnight, basically an edict was handed down through the nighttime hours to all the schools in the country. If a man dressed like a man, who woke up that morning thinking he was a man, and up to the point of getting to the school, believed he was a man, and for one moment, even if it's for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, believes he really was a woman, he's allowed to use the restrooms and changing areas of the little girls' rooms, where the little girls go and use the facilities and change. He's allowed to go in there, and if you don't allow him to dress like a man, momentarily thinking he's a woman, then he can go back to being a man after he leaves the school. The school will lose federal funding. Ooh, that's a big one. That's a dictator. That's intimidating. That's anti-Me Too. That's pro-pedophilia, because that is just candy for all the pedophiles. If you're a pedophile, oh boy, all I have to do is say, well, for a moment I thought I was a woman. Boy, isn't that obvious? Wasn't he the smartest man that ever lived? Didn't he graduate the top of his class at Harvard? He was made editor of the Harvard Law Review, for God's sakes, without writing one single thing. And that's, you have to have that background. You have to have written things to be the editor of the Harvard Law Review. And that's the first time when he announced officially in his bio as the editor of the Harvard Law Review that he was born in Kenya. He wrote that himself. That was the first time. The second time was the press release in his book, Dreams of My Father. Now they're blaming, it's funny because even Snopes said it was true, then Snopes changed it to his publishing, the person who was in charge, the manager who was in charge of the press release. They're the ones who made the mistake. But you see, they take the information from the author, and saying you're born in Kenya and saying you're born in Honolulu, Hawaii, that's kind of strange, because press releases are very short. It's a little short thing. To get that wrong is kind of, first, you see, I'll have to let you know. You know that Google said that they are manipulating their search results because they know that the search engine itself, when you type something in, they can sway the election by 10 million voters just by manipulating the search results. So you don't get the truth. You can get anything. And I have a subscriber, Amy Joyce, who said to me that she owned a bookstore and she was getting rid of all her books, but now she realizes, with the internet being the way it is, the only way you're going to know what the truth is if you have books. You've got it written on paper. That's why I love books. If you saw the amount of books I have, it would make your head spin. I have a passion for books, and I have never trusted the internet because such things can happen, and they will keep happening. Of course, there was a third time. See, the third time that was the second time. Third time is when Michelle Obama herself, and it's on YouTube, announced to a crowd that we went to Kenya to visit my husband's birthplace. So it was Sidney Blumenthal, Hillary Clinton's, he worked for Hillary Clinton. And he got all this information, even a picture of Obama in African Muslim garb, because they wanted to make him look as non-American as they possibly could. It was her. She's the one who's, basically, it was Obama whose fault it is for the birther movement. But the revelation of it came through Hillary and those who worked for Hillary. But Trump was blamed for it. Trump only brought it out because Obama was doing a lot of things that truly were anti-constitution. He was doing a lot of things, and we saw what was going on. And you can't really blame him for that. You really need to blame Obama for that. So that's another what do you call it, molasses debacle itself. Let's see. So I really think that grade school thing really takes the cake. Really takes the cake. And as a little girl, obviously, who knows what it's like to have that happen to you. It blows my mind, especially a Democrat who's supposed to care so much about the women. Amazing, just amazing. Okay, obstructing the NBPP voter intimidation investigation. If not allowing administration officials to testify or fighting subpoenas in the courts is obstruction of justice and therefore an impeachable offense. Then Barack Obama should have been impeached very early in his presidency for just that. When the Obama Justice Department decided to dismiss voter intimidation charges against the new Black Panther Party after the government had effectively already won the case. See, it was already set in stone. Before I continued to read on, do you remember that? I remember that when I was watching the television and they were reporting on the voting and who was going to win, McCain or Obama, and they were going to the polling places around the country, and you saw the new Black Panther Party dressed in black with billy clubs smacking them. They stood outside the polling places and they were intimidating white voters. You vote for Obama, or you don't bother going in at all. They were assured that white people were going to go in there and actually vote for McCain when Obama won by a white majority, which says to all of us at the time, this country was not racist because Obama won by a white majority, not the minorities. If it wasn't for the white people, he would not have gotten elected both times. The second time was the whole IRS thing, Lois Lerner, and how they intimidated and they audited and they didn't allow alternative conservative groups to even assemble, to get together and have a candidate that went back to the original principles of the Founding Fathers. They wanted to go back to those principles and have their own party. So conservative groups were targeted and intimidated. And so people didn't hear all sides of the story. And it was because of almost like, I would say, a dictator would do such a thing. And that's how he got elected the second time. But both times it was by white majority. So the country was not racist. It fell apart during the Obama administration because we had all those riots. Remember all those riots in meeting with Black Lives Matter in the White House, and also the Muslim Brotherhood. He gave $6.8 million to. And then they went and they chopped the heads off of Coptic Christian men. Anyway, and they say that's an arm of ISIS, by the way. Anyway, so the courts, the United States courts, had already, this was already a done deal in the courts that they had intimidated voters. And Eric Holder said, I can't send any more of my people to jail. Well, I don't care what color skin you have. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care. If you break the law, you break the law. It doesn't matter. None of those things really matter. So, it raised many questions about the motivations behind that decision. I wonder why. The Obama administration vigorously fought subpoenas and instructed officials not to testify. Talk about obstruction of justice and going against the courts and evidence itself. And can you imagine how you felt if you went to that polling place and you felt intimidated? That's pretty, they dressed that way and acted that way because it was scary. And most people went and voted for Obama because the bits of racism that were left to this country, we wanted to say, look, it's over with. It's done. Many people went and said, look, finally, we can vote for we can have an African-American president. Finally. And my mother couldn't wait to see him get elected. Finally, racism might be stamped out in this country, or even those who are racist and still racist out there, we would look at them and we would laugh and say, you're really living in the past. You're a joke. Our president, we've gone so beyond that. White majority, the majority of Americans voted him in as president. So mostly everyone doesn't agree with you. It's over with. So the Black Panther Party should really thank the white majority. Yes, you can dislike very much the racists. You can hate them if you like. But the white majority voted him in. And the Black Panthers weren't at every polling place. He won because he won. He won because he won. And he won by a white majority. Nancy Pelosi was still Speaker of the House and didn't accuse Obama of abuse of power for letting an allied group off the hook for voter intimidation for racial reasons. So what they were doing, let's all say it, just like they say, if you opposed Obama's policies, you were a racist. What they were doing was racist. Okay. Not providing subpoenaed Solyndra documents. Oh, Solyndra. Don't you remember when he was going to, it was over $1 trillion that he put into the economy, and the Congress voted that through to just jumpstart the economy again. Except he gave it to numerous groups, green energy groups, but all these people who owned all these companies had donated to him. So he was paying them back. That's what people do when they get into office. If you donate to them, they make up a job that doesn't exist, or they give you a job or whatever. And the taxpayers end up paying these people back thousands of times over the amount of money that they gave to the candidate. So what he did was, and all these companies went belly up. They all went bankrupt. It was just kind of like it's a type of business that just has a kind of like a storefront business that says we're this green energy, we're making solar panels on the inside, and they're not even chewing bubble gum inside, or lest you find a brown cardboard box. When the Obama administration got into hot water over green energy loans for companies that donated to Obama's campaign after several of those companies, like Solyndra, ultimately went bankrupt, House Republicans launched an investigation, as they should, and issued subpoenas. Did the Obama administration respect the authority of Congress to issue subpoenas and comply automatically? Nope. The Obama White House would have none of it, and claimed that complying with the subpoenas put, quote unquote, an unreasonable burden on the president's ability to meet his constitutional duties. So in other words, following the Constitution, going by the Constitution, he could meet his constitutional duties if he actually went by the law and the Constitution, the laws of this country, which I'm not going to think about because my brain is splitting in half. Okay, House Republicans accused the Obama White House of hiding information, and they responded with accusations of a partisan investigation. As let's all say it, it's because you're racist. It's because you're racist. Okay, so just these Democrats is just, it's such a show. They just hate him so much. It's because you just walked into office. We had to go up the ladder. We got into politics. So one day we would be at the top, and we worked for it. You just ran a campaign and walked right in, didn't you? You didn't. Oh, Trump didn't do anything in his life. He didn't achieve anything, did he? He had a few failures, as anyone would do. Didn't Einstein say, if you fail 10,000 times or 999,000 times, one time you get it, and you consider Einstein a genius, but you fail most of the time. Trump actually succeeded most of the time. That's actually, it really does bode very well in his favor. People don't realize this, that people who come up with cures for diseases or anything, they fail. Most of the time, they fail. They get up every day and they fail. Scientists, you have to jot down everything that you've done so you know you don't repeat the mistake. And then you try to figure out what is it that went wrong or what you should tweak a little bit. But most of the time, they fail before they finally find that cure. But he actually succeeded most of the time. Wake up, people. So what? He had a few bankruptcies. So what? He got out there, he got his feet dirty, and he took a chance. It's all about taking a chance. And that's the hardest part of all. 3, not allowing Ben Rhodes to testify on the Iran nuclear deal. Remember how treaties are supposed to be ratified by the U.S. Senate, but the Iran nuclear deal was so bad that Obama didn't bother informing Congress, oh my God, about the details. Oh my God, he did that whole deal without informing Congress. And Congress has the power of the purse. And why wouldn't he have done that? How much money did we give to Iran? That was a lot of money, wasn't it? Let alone ask them to do their constitutional duty of ratification. Well, when Congress wanted answers, the White House refused to let the architect of the deal, Ben Rhodes, to testify. Rhodes was the failed novelist who became the architect of the Iran deal. See, that's there you go. There's somebody with credentials to be the architect of the Iran deal, giving all the billions of dollars to Iran on a pallet. Excuse me, I have to drink a little water. Yeah, a novelist, a failed novelist. Excellent, excellent. I should write something, and then maybe the president will give me some big job that I'm not qualified for. They cited separation of powers and all that. White House counsel Neil Eggleston said at the time, the appearance of a senior presidential advisor before Congress threatens the independence and autonomy of the president, as well as his ability to receive candid advice and counsel in the discharge of his constitutional duties. So that was a threat. If Congress said, no, we're not going to give you $150 billion to be delivered to Iran as cash, and sign a deal that says you can build a nuclear bomb and we promise to send no one in to investigate what you're doing or where you're going to be sending that bomb and what country you're going to be blowing up. All hands free. See, that's why that deal was really bad. They could build a nuclear, which they keep saying they're going. Well, the mullahs, the people of Iran, the Persian people of Iran want to be Americanized again. Under the Shah, women wore suits. They went to work. You could see their faces, the beautiful women, these beautiful descendants of the Persian Empire, one of the greatest empires that has ever been on this planet. Thank you to Alexander the Great for taking it down. These people want to be free, and it's the mullahs. And you see, when we give money to Iran, here's the problem. The people are suffering. The money doesn't go, we give it supposedly to, so they will give aid to the people. They don't. Iran has been taking the money and funding terrorists. Doesn't go to the people. That's the problem. So you don't give $150 billion in cash, leave it on a pallet in the airport, to mullahs that are going to use it for terrorism, have the intention of building a bomb, and say, we're not going to come in and inspect what you're doing. We're just going to put blinders on and we're going to go in the other direction. We're going to go to Cuba and sit and eat ice cream or watching a ball game next to Dwayne or Dennis Castro. Raul. Fidel's brother. I keep mixing the names up. Anyway, so that would impede his constitution. Impede his autonomy and his constitution. So it means he has every right to do whatever he wants to do, whenever he wants to do it, no matter how many people it's going to end up killing. Oh, how many things have I even mentioned? We're only on 3. That either you will traumatize someone for the rest of their lives, like that grade school bathroom deal, and also dressing rooms, women, everything, and little girls go to dressing rooms, or kill people, lots of people, destroy countries. How about that? We should stop doing that too. But Trump is a pacifist. He's trying to end the war. And when he tried to end the war in Afghanistan, what? Mattis jumped ship. Ooh, that was bad. And Mattis went to work for the military-industrial complex, what Eisenhower warned us of in the 50s. And he was a general, you see. They're in it to make money. And Mattis went and got a job for the military, the people who make all these military equipment that will kill people and keep the war machine going. And Trump wanted to end it. But you see, then those generals that he hired left. That is interesting. Okay, the Iran ransom payments investigation. The Obama administration was so secretive about their corrupt dealings with Iran, and when they made a shady $400 million payment to Iran in foreign currency under the cover of night in exchange for hostages, and that jumped up to $150 billion. See, they paid a ransom. They gave them $400 million in exchange for hostages. And you can't really do that. See, like, I know what the rest of this is. When you do that is you encourage countries, and it happened. Right after that, it happened. If you pay ransom for hostages, instead of Trump said when Reagan was running, he said to Rona Barrett that we need a president in office that's going to go in there with military power and just get our hostages out. So they held them for like over a year, and Jimmy Carter just tried to do talks. You just go in, you use the firepower that you need just to get the job done, and you get them out. Otherwise, countries, people in general will just keep, oh, it's an American, take them in as a hostage, and then America will give us any amount of money we want if we ask for it, because clearly Obama set precedent by paying the $400 million ransom for the hostages that Iran, that we signed a deal, a nuclear deal with, and gave more money to. A country, you're gonna sign a deal like that? We're not gonna come and expect your bomb-making activities, and we're going to give you all this money that we know you're funding terrorists with, and you're keeping from your citizens, and your citizens are starving and living under Sharia law. Well, Sharia means Islamic law. When we say Sharia law, it means law, technically. And we're gonna pay you a ransom, and we're going to expect that we don't need to watch what you're doing. You're just feeding a very corrupt government. And that's one corrupt government that we know of. But we also know that the Ukraine was one of the most corrupt governments in the world that we give money to. And since we know, I guess according to that Mueller investigation that everybody seems to forget, that Mueller found, you see, there's no point in asking for Trump's tax returns or anything else. Remember Mueller, his investigation, he had, 13 people who donated to Hillary and Obama who hated Trump. Investigating this, they found all these things that were wrong with tax returns, like Manafort's tax returns. They found all that. They looked through all these tax returns, and they found things that were wrong and put these people in jail on process crimes. So now, if they found, let's see, people trying to cheat the government out of their money, their tax revenue, by the people who worked for Trump, don't you think Mueller got all of Trump's tax returns? And if Mueller did not find anything, during 2.5 years and at least $30 million later, don't you think he would have gone for Trump? That was his job, to go after Trump first and foremost, and everybody else, because you want these people to talk and squeal and say, all right, say something against Trump, even if it's a lie, testify, even if it's a lie, so we can get him. Well, don't you think that they already went through all of Trump's stuff? Because they went through all of their stuff, and they found all these little bitty crimes that were done 10, 20 years ago. Don't you think he went, it was 500 million pieces of documents, official documents that they asked or they subpoenaed the Trump administration for, that they handed over? I forget how many, 500 witnesses later. They were completely open about it. He just handed it over. He gave them everything. And also Mueller had the power to get everything out. So you really don't need this whole tax return thing. So let's see. Okay, all right. They didn't tell Congress about the money or the hostages. See, they didn't tell Congress that they were paying ransom, which is against the law. Do you know that's against the law of the United States? That's against the law. That's impeachable. And they didn't tell Congress, oh no, Congress has more power than the president. And Congress has 3 branches. Oh, Ocasio-Cortez. 3 branches. 3 branches are executive, judicial, and legislative. And the legislative branch is broken up into 2 parts. So 1/2 of one branch doesn't have more power over the other 2.5 branches. It just doesn't. Okay, and so they didn't tell, Obama didn't tell Congress, even though Pelosi's 3rd in line to the throne. And I suspect, and it's really interesting when I hear people that are all big and famous say the same thing. After they knock off Trump, they're going to knock off Pence real fast, and Nancy Pelosi is going to be the president. She's 3rd in line to the throne. What do you think they're doing this for? That's it. So Democrats have full power, and what a great president she's going to make. I mean, they shoot the Botox directly into her brain every day because there's so much space to put lots of Botox, and she doesn't have to go for an injection for a very long time after they do that. She's got a reserve tank in that cavity. So, okay, when Congress wanted answers, they weren't exactly forthcoming with information. You see, Obama, the administration, didn't give any answers when they wanted answers. The State Department ignored requests for documents. And Attorney General Loretta Lynch, oh, she was a beauty. She was just great. Her and that tarmac meeting with Clinton. And then afterwards, we heard Comey read the Riot Act, the list of all her crimes that we all know about. You see, Trump, we can't find any crimes. There are no crimes. But they're just assuming something just to get him out of office. With Hillary, we know exactly what she did. And he said something that he's not supposed to say. He said he wouldn't recommend indicting her. That's not his job. It's not his job to recommend or not recommend indicting someone. And he said, oh no, you don't let her off the hook. No reasonable prosecutor would indict her. Not for those offenses. Yeah, she'd be in jail for the emails. Jail alone, if there was 1 year for each email, north of 33,000 years. But Trump, we think he's done something. We don't know. We just assume. because we hate. It's because they hate. Isn't there a book about that? It's because they hate. I think it's about racism. It's because they hate. See, because people who hate will figure out any way to do anything, to destroy anyone they want. Hate provokes you to do many, many things. And it's destroying not only the lives of Americans, but the life of America. And it certainly has destroyed, by destroying the minds of these Democrats. That kind of hate drives you insane. That's what's wrong with them. It's more than drugs. It's more than the fact that they were hippies at one time, all of them. Hate drives you to lose your mind, drives you to be completely irrational. And used to be before Trump was elected, even in the movies and TV, they used to show you how politicians were corrupt. You can't trust politicians, they're corrupt. Then Trump gets into office, politicians, they are more qualified. Hillary's more, because she's somehow, the only thing it was when she was senator. She was never elected to any office until she ran for senator, to be the senator of New York State, which is a state she's never lived in. And she only got it because her husband was president, and she was, for 8 years, the sparkling light of the White House and all our lives. That's how she got in. So what kind of experience as a politician does she really have? She's a Secretary of State. Yes, she went around the world, and it was pay for play, and she got money from all these countries. That Qatar thing was just verified. I heard about this 3 years ago, and they said, you have to close this company in Florida, and she did, and they gave her money, and she did whatever. She would have been a president that all she would be doing is favors for countries all over the world. She would be doing nothing for us. The only thing she would do for us is maybe buy the bourbon that is made under the moon in some state in this country. That's the most she would be doing. So paying the, granny from the Beverly Hillbillies to make moonshine for her. That's it. Okay. So, obstructing dozens of Inspector General investigations. If we're going to be honest about Obama and how he handled his administration, then it needs to be pointed out that it wasn't just a few select investigations that were obstructed. It was dozens. Did you hear what I said? Congress, Pelosi. It was dozens. Dozens upon dozens of times. And nobody said anything. This was in their nature because it was happening all the time. So much, in fact, that halfway through his second term, 47 of the nation's 73 Inspector General wrote a letter to Congress accusing the Obama administration of systemic obstruction of justice. This was unprecedented. Nothing even close to this had ever happened before in our nation's history. Was there a special counselor appointed to investigate? Nope. Was Nancy Pelosi calling for the impeachment? Nope. Was there any accountability at all? Nope. Nope. Countless. That's right. Because if they did, they would have been accused of racism. But you know what? You see, Ben Carson were president, who is a descendant of slaves on both sides, comes from abject poverty. His mother was the child of 24 children. One of 24 children. She was completely illiterate. And she told her children that every day they had not only had to do their homework, but she was going to inspect it. And after working for, and she made sure they did it, they brought her their homework. She inspected it. And then he found out when he was older, and he became a brain surgeon and head of pediatric brain surgery, and separated the first conjoined twins that were conjoined by the brain. And I heard some Democrats on TV saying, oh, surgeons aren't smart. Doctors, they're the ones that are smart. But surgeons, they just cut. I actually heard this. Probably was a time when my sister was here. She was watching MSNBC or something like that. His brother became literally a rocket scientist. He found out when he got older that his mother was completely illiterate. She just pretended, but she cared about her children's education. And that's the key to, no matter what race you are or religion, the key for your children to succeed is to care about their education and make sure they're doing it. So she was intelligent. Imagine what she could have been. Had children like that. Imagine what she could have been if she had gone to school. You can just imagine. So if Ben Carson had became president and done anything, because he's a Republican, and he got up and on a podium in front of Obama, disagreed with his health care plan. Therefore, Oprah, who used to love Ben Carson, started to hate him. And so did Obama, and so did the entire Democrat Party. You had to hate Ben Carson. So why isn't that racism? Why isn't that wrong? You have to be a Democrat too, you see. I think it's just being a Democrat. Doesn't matter what color skin you are. Yes, it's not about racism. Simply about party. That's what this is all about. And how dare Trump run as a Republican when he's voted for many different parties? How dare he run against Hillary after they told her in 2008 to take the fall and let Obama be president, and gave Obama votes he never got, otherwise he'd never get the nomination. He wasn't on the ballot in Michigan and Florida, and they decided, I saw it on TV, they decided just to give him votes that they thought he would have gotten. They had no idea. So they actually finagled to put him in office so they could say the party of the KKK and Jim Crow and all those lynchings. That party, we put the first African-American in office, not descendant of slaves. We hate Ben Carson, though. He's a descendant of slaves on both sides. Yeah. You're right, guys. You're not racist. You're hanging on your sleeve. Not racist.
The evidence reveals a president who used the powers of his office to demand that a foreign government participate in undermining a competing candidate for the presidency. If we are to keep faith with our Constitution and with our republic, President Trump must be held to account.
If Congress fails to impeach here, then the impeachment process has lost all meaning. I stand with the Constitution, and I stand with the framers who were committed to ensure that no one is above the law.
On the basis of the testimony and the evidence before the House, President Trump has committed impeachable high crimes and misdemeanors by corruptly abusing the office of the presidency.
Oh, yeah, that sounds bad. And as you just heard, the framers would frown upon it. What would they think specifically? Well, fortunately, Jerry Nadler asked that question, and witness Noah Feldman had an answer. Here it was.
If Washington were here today, if he were joined by Madison and Hamilton and other framers, What do you believe they would say if presented with the evidence before us about President Trump's conduct?
I believe the framers would identify President Trump's conduct as exactly the kind of abuse of office, high crime and misdemeanor that they were worried about.
Madison, Hamilton, Washington. These are basically the same people the left would like to see dethroned. Their statues knocked over by screaming college kids. They must be very bad men. So presumably, if even they think Trump is rotten, then impeachment mandatory. None of today's witnesses had any actual evidence against the president. They were instead giving you their opinion.
Professor Carlin, can we make between kings that the framers were afraid of and the president's conduct today?
The Constitution says there can be no titles of nobility. So while the president can name his son Baron, he can't make him a baron.
Thank you, the founding.
Yeah, I wonder how long they practiced that one in the air.
We have to seize back the high ground on patriotism and on love of our country, because we have more reason than they do to love America. The rich, pampered, prodigal, sanctimonious, incurious, white, straight sons of the powerful do pretty well everywhere in the world, and they always have.
This lady needs to shrink.